Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Happy Wednesday to you. Thank you so much for joining me for a fun Michaels class today. My name is Sarah, and I am a designer for Beadalon, and I have a really fun project for you guys today. I love this project. This is one that I teach kind of on a regular basis in different variations. This is probably the most simple variation of this bracelet, and so it is always a crowd pleaser. I hope you guys absolutely love this one. It is really easy to do, but the results are gorgeous, and that's my favorite kind of jewelry, right? Instant gratification, where it doesn't take a ton of brain power, but I can put together something that is absolutely beautiful. I want to encourage you guys, those of you who sell your jewelry or those of you who are gifting jewelry for this upcoming holiday season, to definitely consider this one because it is so easy to put together. This is one that you can put together several of these in one day, and you can really change up the beads to get a completely different look. I'm going to show you some really beautiful beads that I'm using for the project, but keep in mind, you can use any round bead, and actually you can use square beads, a lot of different variations, and come up with some different looks to this. All right, so we're going to get down to it. I'm going to show you everything you need, and we are going to put together a really beautiful, what is considered to be a goddess bracelet. Now, I didn't make that up. That's not the name that I came up with for it. That just happens to be what this style is. And somebody out there once upon a time decided that that's what they were going to call this. So we're just going with it. It's very much kind of a wave bracelet. I'm not real sure why they call it a goddess bracelet, but for whatever reason, it is definitely fit for a goddess or a queen if you are feeling like that. These beads, though, are definitely giving me mermaid vibes. So if that's the look you're going for, these beads are going to be absolutely perfect for you. And they come in a bunch of different colors, which is cool as well. Okay, so basically there are very minimal materials other than the jump rings. You're going to have a ton of jump rings. I'm using 6mm jump rings for this and beads. But as far as your other materials are concerned, you're just going to need some bead stringing wire. You're going to need about 24 inches. I'm using 19 strand in silver color, just because you're going to see just a tiny, tiny bit of it. Now, if you want to use the bright color or you want to use gold or something different, you absolutely can. You're only going to see this tiny, tiny little bit on both ends of the bracelet. So I just picked that beautiful silver color because it looks pretty. And then you're going to need some crimp tubes. I'm using number 2. They definitely are the correct size to go with my bead stringing wire. So keep that in mind. If you're using different bead stringing wire than I am, you want to refer to the front of the packaging. It's going to tell you what size crimp bead or crimp tube is going to go with the size of bead stringing wire that you're using. So mine needs number 2 crimp tubes, and that's what I am going to use for our project. I'm also going to be using some crimp covers. And you can grab these handy little containers from Michaels from Beadalon that have different kinds of crimp covers in them. There are some smaller ones. There are some plain ones. These have these really cute little ridges on them. And then these kind of look like, I don't really know how to explain it, but they always remind me of like a starry sky. I don't know why that's what that makes me think of, but they just have a little bit of texture to them. So they're really, really beautiful. And this handy little pack you can toss to the side of your desk or into your bag and take those anywhere. You're going to need your regular hardware. Of course, we're going to need tons of jump rings and a jump ring to go with your clasp. I'm using just a standard lobster clasp for this project. And then, of course, you're going to need some wire guardians. These are important. You need at least 2 of these. We're going to start out from the very beginning with a wire guardian. Okay. So the beads I am using are 6mm. These are glass synthetic opal matte aqua 6mm. And I just wanted to show you that because I get this question a lot about the size of the jump rings versus the size of the bead. So I'm using 6mm beads and I'm using 6mm jump rings. Okay. And I find that for the best looking bracelet, you want that combination to stay true. So in other words, if you're going to use 4mm beads, you want to use 4mm jump rings. If you're going to use 8mm beads, you want to use 8mm jump rings. It just makes it look better. If you mix those up and have 6mm beads with 4mm jump rings, it throws the entire balance of the project off. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to use different beads, make sure that your jump rings are the same size. All right, so as far as these, I'm using this beautiful aqua. Definitely reminds me of mermaids, but Michaels has these in purple and pink, and I think another color, I'm not quite sure, but all of these kind of man-made opal beads are really beautiful no matter which color you pick. Okay. All right, so the tool for the day is going to be the tying station. This is what we're going to use to attach our bracelet, our bead stringing wire to, so that we can be hands-free. Okay, and I'm actually going to be using one of the little loops. I get asked about the little loops quite often, so we're going to be using one of the little holes that is on the acrylic plate of the tying station. All right, let's get to it, shall we? You're going to need 24 inches of bead stringing wire, and you want to take your two ends and bring those together and find the middle of your bead stringing wire. And we're going to take a wire guardian, thread it on, and bring it to the middle of that bead stringing wire. So take your wire guardian, one end of your bead stringing wire, thread it through, and then thread it through the other side of the wire guardian. Okay, and now you want to pull this, bringing your ends together. Now go slow so that you don't kink any of your wire or create any abrasion. Just go slow when you're pulling your bead stringing wire through, because that's a long length to pull through a wire guardian. But you want to bring those two ends together, making sure that your wire guardian is centered in the middle of that 24-inch piece of bead stringing wire. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to add a crimp tube to this. So I'm going to take those two ends of the bead stringing wire, and I'm going to thread a crimp tube onto both of those. Okay, and then I'm going to drop this down right up next to the wire guardian. Okay, I want to separate out the bead stringing wire, make sure that it is not crossing itself inside the crimp tube, so it's running parallel inside there. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with my crimper tool, and we're going to give this a crimp. So for the crimper tool, I'm going to use that back notch. That's the one that has the little tooth that comes down. So you're going to take it, put it in the back notch, and give it a squeeze. That's going to further separate out those wires within the crimp tube. And then you're going to place it sideways into the front notch of the crimper and give it another squeeze. That is going to help tidy up the crimp and just make it a little bit smaller. Okay, now I'm going to add one of those crimp covers over the top of this. So just want to take your crimp cover, place it onto your bead stringing wire, and then use a pair of pliers very gently to close your crimp cover over your crimp tube or your crimp bead. If you happen to be using beads, it really doesn't matter which one you use with this project. I just prefer the tubes. Okay, so you just want to close that over, make sure you get a nice good closure on that. And this should just look like a bead with the rest of your work. Okay. All right. Now we want to attach this to our tying station so that we can work with both of our hands. Now you can obviously use some tape and tape this down to your surface if you want to, if you don't have the tying station. The tying station is so handy. We're going to take advantage of it. All right. So all I need is just to have a stationary surface to attach this. And you can use a large jump ring if you want to. Actually just have like a spare piece of scrap wire. I'm going to use that instead of a large jump ring. But basically, I'm just going to loop this wire through the acrylic plates here, okay, on the tying station, which normally would sit this direction. But for this project, I'm actually going to let it sit this direction. And I'm going to loop that through my wire guardian. And then I'm just going to kind of like a twisty tie almost. I'm just going to twist this wire just to attach. Okay. I don't want to use the acrylic plate. I am going to trim off some of this excess so that it doesn't bother me while I'm working, but I don't want to use the acrylic plate for this because I've already got a crimp tube cover over my crimp, right? And I don't want to mash that with the acrylic plate. I need to be able to get as close to that bead. I need to be able to get both strands, and I can't do that if I've got it attached underneath, or rather between these two acrylic plates. So I'm just going to use one of the little loops there. I'm also going to tighten it down so that it doesn't wiggle around on me too much. Okay. Now, the only thing about doing it this way is normally when you're using the tying station and you have your work set between the two acrylic plates, then your measurements are correct, right? The top of your piece is going to start right in the middle of the acrylic plate, so that where you start your work down here is going to be right at 1 inch. Well, because we're not doing that, we are off by an inch and about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, somewhere around there. So I need to take that into consideration. So now my measurements are off, right? It's not going to be a regular straight measurement. And that's okay, right? I can still take it off of here, measure whatever, or do subtraction. I hate to do math, but I mean, you know, you do what you got to do. Most important part of this is just that we're attached. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on a bead. So we're going to cut our beads off of our strand. And this is so simple and straightforward at this point, you guys. The only part that I think that anybody will struggle with is going to be at the end. And it's really not even a struggle. It's just a little bit different than how we started to finish off our bracelet. Okay, so I've got 2 strands of bead stringing wire, and I'm going to alternate those strands with beads and with jump rings. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of the strands. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to thread on one of the beads, and I'm going to drop that down. I want that to sit right up against the crimp cover. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my jump rings, and this is going to take a lot of jump rings. So I'm going to just dump out a pile of the Beadalon 6mm jump rings right here. Okay. And I'm going to take 2 jump rings, and I want to thread those on to both strands of the bead stringing wire. Okay. So the bead just went onto one, but our jump rings are going to go onto both. Okay. We're going to drop those down. Now we're going to take the opposite strand of bead stringing wire, the one that we didn't put a bead on, the one that doesn't have a bead on it yet, and we're going to thread on a bead. Okay, and then we're going to drop that down. Okay, now you can see that's what's going to create our pattern. We're going to alternate beads on the bead stringing wire. Okay, 1 bead, and then 2 jump rings, 1 bead and 2 jump rings. It's that simple. That's all we're going to do to work up the entire length of the bracelet. So a lot of just repetition here. I'm going to take both strands of the bead stringing wire. I'm going to thread on 2 jump rings. Okay, drop those down. And the jump rings are what are going to help to create that chevron pattern. Okay, now I'm going to take the wire that I didn't add a bead to last, right? So alternating the wire, thread on a bead, drop it down. And you can see that little wave pattern is already starting to take shape. Okay, 2 jump rings. Make sure they go onto both of the bead stringing wire, because if they don't, you'll know it when you bring it down. You'll have to pull them off and do it again. So just be mindful that you're threading it over both. Drop it down. Take the wire that doesn't have a bead from the last step. Thread on a bead. Okay, bring both wires together again. 2 jump rings. Bring that down. And bring that down. Okay, I'm just giving you guys another little up close look at the pattern. Okay, so the jump rings are what create the V shape between the two. If you didn't add the jump rings, you would have big gaps of the bead stringing wire. Okay, so the jump rings are definitely what really give this that overall back and forth kind of wavy shape. Okay. Right, so just pick up 2 jump rings, drop those down. This bracelet, the goddess style bracelet, so this is probably the easiest technique for this style of bracelet, but there are several other ways. I'm just going to keep going here, alternating as we talk. There are several other ways that you can create this shape with different materials, right? You can, instead of using jump rings, you can use some macrame knots in between your beads. So you would use like 2 pieces of Beadalon or 2 pieces of some sort of nylon cord or cotton cord, and create knots to make the same kind of chevron shape that the jump rings make. You can actually do this with wire, and you would just thread your beads on. And instead of using jump rings, you would wire wrap the entire length of the bracelet using the wire in place of the jump rings. And again, you're going to get all very same style look. They all do look a little bit different, of course, but I find that this one is the easiest out of all of them and takes the least amount of time. And if you ask me, I really think the results of this one are much prettier than the others, but feel free to look it up, the goddess bracelet. You can look it up and see how many different ways you can do this. And just this straight design that we're doing here, you can change this up, the entire look of this, by changing your beads or changing the shape of your beads. I've even done this with teardrop shaped beads that were drilled across the top, and it looks very different. Cube beads also have a very different look as well. Whoops, I was going to put that bead on to both of those bead stringing wires. We're ready for jump rings this time. I have even seen people do this with 3 rows of beads. So you would just use 3 strands of bead stringing wire. And that looks really cool as well. But if I'm under the mindset that if it's not broken, don't fix it. This is my favorite. I've tried them all, but this one is definitely my favorite. The only thing about this is that it does use quite a bit of jump rings. So you have to prepare in advance that you have plenty of jump rings on hand to create this look. But I think it's worth it. Very, very pretty, and definitely makes a great gift, stocking stuffer, or, you know, for your craft booth. All right, so we just keep going here, repeating the same thing, adding a bead and then adding 2 jump rings. So just more of the same. You definitely want to be sure that your jump rings are closed. I didn't really do anything to these jump rings. I just kind of dumped them out of the package and I'm using them straight from the package. But you want to be sure that all your jump rings are closed. That definitely, you definitely don't want to thread on an open jump ring because it's not going to stay, obviously, but. You can also do this with just a single jump ring, but I find that the double jump ring just gives it a overall prettier appearance. I don't know. I really feel like it really pronounces that back and forth kind of pattern a little bit better than a single jump ring. But play around with this technique because you can really get different looks with the exact same technique just by changing up your beads. Uh-oh. Okay. All right, so working our way down. You can see it works up pretty quickly. It's not super quick because you have to alternate. So you do have to, you know, do a little more than you would with a straight stringing project. But for the most part, this works up very, very quickly, and certainly quicker than if you were wire wrapping this or creating knots. We would not have gotten this far at this point. Okay. So the issue at the end of this is going to be getting our 2 bead stringing wires down to 1 single bead stringing wire to finish this off with a crimp, right? So definitely encourage you to stick around for that part so that you can see how to finish this project off. And it is a technique that will work with not just this project in particular, but with other projects where you've got more than 1 strand of bead stringing wire. Okay, I'm going to bring in my sample piece here in just a second so that we can get an idea of how much further we need to go. Looks like we're about halfway. So with my sample is exactly 7.5 inches for a bracelet. That includes the hardware at the end. So I just want to kind of measure up against what I've got going on already here. And we're pretty close. We're a little bit more than halfway. So it looks like we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 11 more beads to add, and we'll be ready to finish this. But I do notice, I don't know if you can tell or not, but one of my jump rings was not quite closed, and so it has slipped off of one of my bead stringing wires. So I'm just gonna, you can see how it's just barely open, right? I'm just gonna sit that one to the side and pick another one, but you could definitely just take your chain nose pliers and close that jump ring back up. Okay, drop those down. Such a pretty look. Definitely a nice variation on just simple stringing. We're getting there, guys. We're almost to the end. So just a few more beads. Okay. So again, let's just bring in the sample and just take a look. Okay. All right. Getting pretty close. And you're also going to notice that your bead stringing wires are getting a lot shorter now. But don't stress, because it doesn't take a lot of bead stringing wire to finish this off. You're going to have plenty to work with. Okay. Just a couple more to go, and then we're going to finish this off. And I'll show you how to add your hardware. Okay. And right here at the end, I think we only need one, maybe two more beads. So I'm going to put one on and we're going to check. Okay, so there's one. Bring in the sample and lay it out here. Oh, nope, we're off by two, actually. I did not count very well. All right, two more beads. That's not many, right? We're nearly there. Nearly there. I was a little jumping the gun there on that one. It's funny because that back and forth between the two strands makes it a little trickier to compare up against another one. So it's not just a straight strand of beads. That one looks very open. Let's try another one. Okay. Let's do one more just for good measure. Just because I don't trust myself eyeballing it. So we're going to do one more bead and then we're going to call this done. All right, so there's our last bead. Okay, so this is what we have so far, right? We started out up here at the top with just our single bead. We do have a little bit of the bead string and wire showing right there at the beginning, which is fine. So you're going to have the exact same thing down here on the bottom. Now you can go ahead and take this off of the tying station if you want to, or you can do all of this while it is still on the tying station. It makes no difference whatsoever. I'm actually going to leave mine on the tying station just for the time being. You can see I still have a few inches of bead string and wire to work with, so no problems there. I have plenty that I can use to finish this off. So I'm going to take another crimp tube and I'm going to take that crimp tube and I'm going to thread it on to both of the ends of the bead stringing wire, just like we did when we got started. Okay, I'm going to drop that crimp tube down up next to my beads. Now, again, remember at the beginning, we had that one piece of that little piece of bead string and wire showing. You're going to have that here too. Okay, so don't think that the more you pull, the more you're going to tuck that in. That's not going to happen. There's just no way around that. But what we want to do is we want to crimp this crimp tube over the bead stringing wire. And again, you want to be sure that your wires are not crossing within the crimp. Place that into the crimp tool into that back notch and you want to give it a crimp. Okay, and then you want to take that crimp and turn it sideways and put it in the front notch and give it a crimp as well. Okay, now we have two strands here. We only want to work with one. So you can either put your crimp cover on now and trim off the other, or you can trim off the basically we're going to trim off one of the wires. When I say the other, you're going to trim one of the wires off. I like to put my crimp cover on first and then trim the wire so that I'm not actually trimming the wire right at the crimp. I don't know that it makes that much of a difference really, but I just feel like it does. It's probably just in my mind. So I'm just going to take my crimp cover, and again, I'm going to use my pliers just very gently to close that over our crimp tube. Get a good closure on that. Okay. Now that should just look like a bead, right? Okay, now we're going to take one of those wires, those bead stringing wires, and we're going to cut it off because we only need one at this point. And if you have crimped correctly, you don't have to worry that that's going to come undone. Okay, so now we are going to just finish this off like we would if it were a single strand design. So we're going to thread on our crimp tube. We're going to thread on our wire guardian. Okay, and then we're just going to pull that down right up next to the crimp cover that we just added. Okay, and we want to crimp. And again, you want to crimp, making sure that your wires are not crossing within that crimp. So into the back notch, into the front notch, and then we are going to trim off the excess and add another crimp cover to this. So one end has 2 crimp covers and one end only has 1. If that bugs you, you can leave off the second crimp cover. I don't find that it really makes much of a difference as far as, you know, what the bracelet looks like, because those 2 are going to sit right next to each other. It looks like it, you know, it looks like it's meant to be that way, which it is. So. And of course, this is at your clasp. So most people are noticing the beauty of the goddess bracelet pattern and not really paying much attention to how many crimp covers you have on the end of your design. All right, so I've got those 2 crimp covers attached. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this free from the tying station. So we have our bracelet. We've got 2 wire guardians on either end. So now the only thing we have left to do is just to add our hardware to this and our bracelet is done. And before I do that though, you can take a look at how it all came together with alternating the beads on the bead stringing wires and the jump rings. Now you can even use texture jump rings for this. You can make your own jump rings in any color wire that you want, which is really cool. A lot of different options with this. But even if you just stick with the straight metal and the straight plain jump rings, it still looks really awesome. So I'm going to take 2 of the jump rings. And we're going to use some chain nose pliers here to attach this. All right, so I'm just going to take another 6mm jump ring between 2 pairs of pliers. I'm going to twist to open. I'm going to thread that onto one end and go ahead and attach my clasp. And then close that back with a twist, making sure I get a really good closure on that. And then I'm just going to add a jump ring to the other end. Now you can add an extension chain to this if you wanted to. Definitely if you're going to sell this, a lot of times I encourage people to add an extension chain just so that your customers get whatever size bracelet they want and you can keep your materials the same no matter what. But if you do this with, let's go ahead and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 22, 3, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 of the 6mm beads, including your hardware, is going to give you a 7.5-inch bracelet, which is pretty standard. So that's a pretty average size for a bracelet. And an extension chain, you can either buy extension chains or you can just cut some little pieces of chain to add to this to add an extension to it. But 33 6mm beads will get you a standard size bracelet, including your hardware. So there you go, guys. Show you what it looks like up against your arm because it lays so nice and flat. Right? You don't have to worry that it doesn't fit perfectly and it doesn't, it doesn't lay nicely. It really does. It lays absolutely beautifully. So there you go. All right, guys, I'm going to turn you around. We will say our goodbyes. I hope you've enjoyed this bracelet for sure. I saw in the comments, somebody said this is perfect for summer. I got to say, it really is perfect for summer as far as these beads are concerned. Because they definitely have that kind of mermaid feel to them. But could you imagine this with like copper jump rings and some deep orange, red beads, maybe some carnelian? So you can definitely make this work for fall. You're gonna also make this work for winter as well, just changing up your colors, maybe adding a bead that has some texture to it. So I definitely think that even though this one is very summertime, I agree, you could definitely turn this into an all seasons, any season, right? Just by changing up those beads. I think textured beads would be really cool with this. So, all right, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this project. It's definitely one of my favorites. I cannot wait to see what you guys make. Please don't forget to post your creations on social media with the hashtags that have been provided for you guys. Thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with me. I appreciate it so much. And I will see you guys again with another fun project very, very soon. Have a great afternoon, guys. Bye.